Phil here, everybody, Fantasy Author's Handbook. We need to talk about the last randomly chosen paperback book that I pulled out of here. I just finished reading it last night or the wee hours of this morning. And that was Hawkshaw by Ron Goulart. We need to talk about this book. This was not just... A lot of these books, these are old, vintage science fiction books from mostly the 60s and early 70s. And a little bit earlier than that, generally. Really, almost none of them later than that. And so most of the time it's like, oh, that was really cool ideas. Obviously, it's still dated. They missed this technology, they blah, 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 right? All the stuff that you would expect from books from, like the 50s, right? All the sort of old-fashioned gender roles and things like that. But was it fun? Was it cool? Rarely does a book come out of this stack and then blow my mind in a very different, really unexpected, very fresh way. We need to talk about Hawkshaw by Ron Goulart. Then we're going to pick another one at random. Okay, we're talking about Hawkshaw by Ron Goulart. Chosen at random from the giant stacks, like 400 plus books that I've just sort of collected over the years. And I'm trying to read them all. I'm getting there. Anyway, this is the second book I've read by Ron Goulart. And the first one I really liked. And, so who is Ron Goulart? Right? He only passed away just a few years ago, but he was really writing, sort of back in this era. This book was published in 1972, which you can see there if you care. This is from Galaxy Science Fiction Novel, obviously, the magazine Galaxy Science Fiction, and published by Award Books, so a smaller publisher. Very short, right? Just a little teeny thing, and with big type. So this really, it didn't take me long to read. It's just I had to keep coming and going from it, whatever. But anyway, the first book of his that I read, the title escapes me. I'll put it down below. I thought was really good, even though I generally don't like funny science fiction or fantasy, which tends to be that kind of Board of the Rings or Spaceballs kind of thing, which is, hey, this is dumb, right? We all know that how stupid this genre is, so we're just going to do Captain Jerk slips on a banana peel or whatever, which I hate that. I hate that. So generally when somebody says, oh, it's like comedy sci-fi, I start running the other direction. Ron Goulart, though, knows how to do it, right? Ron Goulart knows the difference between Spaceballs, which is science fiction is stupid and you're stupid for liking it, and Young Frankenstein, which is these movies were amazing. We're going to do a really actually decent Frankenstein movie with some of the most hilarious jokes of all time. I think still the funniest movie ever made, right? So it's about a respect for the genre, a respect for the conventions, and a respect for the readership, right? Or viewership in the case of Young Frankenstein. So, that book of his that I read, I got it because it was a good, hard-boiled kind of crime mystery novel with crazy science fiction elements to it, and then some just, sort of biting satire kind of humor. This one goes way farther over the top. This one is definitely more, just feels like on, kind of at first, like he's just throwing elements in there. He's just throwing some sci-fi stuff, and there's these robots, and then there's this thing and this stuff. But there's more to this. So Ron Goulart was, right, this great working author, this kind of, can we call him a hack writer? I don't think so. This book was not a hack work. There's a lot going on in here, and that's why we're talking about it. But he wrote a lot. He did a lot of stuff. He was the actual author of the William Shatner Tech War series, right? He was the ghostwriter on that one. I'm the original Star Trek fan. I will never say anything bad about the great William Shatner, but I think everybody knew he didn't actually write those. I mean, no offense, right? But, you know, so Ron Goulart, right? Even Wikipedia says, I'm reading this, so if I'm looking at notes. The characteristic style of his work is satire and anarchic humor. Yup, right? That's definitely true. And it is on full display in Hawkshaw. Which this book, I didn't realize when I started reading it, is actually part of what he called the Fragmented America series. And somewhere in and around here, I'll show you the list of the other books. I never got the feeling reading this that I was missing something. That I think that's might be a series that shares a setting, right? The Fragmented America setting, but doesn't. I didn't get the feeling that I would miss something that came before, or that, and it didn't leave, you know, sort of a hanging thing like, well, then it's continued in the next book. Those were all spread out between 1970 and 1981. So, right. So the basic concept, right, of Fragmented America is that, you know, the country, the United States of America, collapsed in 1989. Remember, the book was written in 1972. So he's writing sort of near future satire, sci-fi, a kind of, you know, funnier, tongue-in-cheek version of, you know, what Orwell was doing in 1984. And the country has collapsed and it's now kind of split across this liberal versus conservative vibe. This is where the book starts getting like... The original 13 colonies, right, on the eastern seaboard, got together and formed a separate nation called the 13 colonies, or some version of the 13 colonies. I did the math from references in here, and I believe that the year that the book was set in is actually 1997. So again, the future of 1972, but not like crazy too far into the future. And anyway, our hero, if you can call him that, is a reporter named Noah Kraft. And he's sent to the 13 colonies to investigate sightings of a werewolf. There's a werewolf that's been terrorizing people. So right already you're in this weird future kind of, you know, post-American world, and there's a werewolf, and everybody's like, what? And so he goes to investigate that. Very quickly understands that there's more going on than there is a werewolf. That really kind of fades away in an interesting way, though. It's not just like, oh, they forgot about the werewolf. And instead, Noah starts to really chase what he finds is the real story, which is the rumors, at least, of the establishment of concentration camps, where the extreme conservative government of the 13 colonies, led by this shockingly Trump-like figure, George Washington II, has set up. They've set up these concentration camps. It's all very secret. And meanwhile, now Noah has to deal with all of these competing factions. The New Jersey Mafia, which really feels exactly out of The Sopranos. I mean, all sorts of crazy different people with different agendas. And meanwhile, this very Trump-like figure is setting up concentration camps. Look, let me just read you what I posted on Goodreads. And keeping in mind, I give every book I read 5 stars on Goodreads. There's a separate video about that. Choosing this book at random in January of 2025 amidst the chaos of the current political disaster here in America was quite a thing. The book is creepy and surprisingly relevant. In Hawkshaw, published in 1972, Ron Goulart predicts a future where the United States has collapsed into smaller local nations across a strict liberal versus conservative divide. Our hero, Noah, is a reporter sent to investigate werewolf sightings in the 13 colonies and finds the conservative government there, led by the masked figure George Washington II, has interred liberals in concentration camps. This is spooky enough, but what seemed even weirder is his spot-on prediction of the age of the amateur. the culture of criticism, the appearance of the influencer, and everything wrong with our current culture. He even has one character say, "Never trust an expert," as if it's a common aphorism. Everyone Noah encounters is fully in their own heads, talking incessantly about themselves and what they think, constantly complaining. So any routine interaction gets increasingly lengthy and difficult. It was all meant as broad satire, and like all science fiction, is really about the time it was written in. But Goulart's attempt at lampooning America in 1972, with the most over-the-top extrapolations he could come up with, have, 53 years later, hit closer to the bullseye than anyone reading this book in 2025 should ever be comfortable with. Oh, man. Look, I mean, here's the thing. This was all meant to be broad satire, right? Ron Goulart wasn't trying to predict 1997 any more than any science fiction author really is. Maybe there's a few who believe that they're predicting the future, right? This was about America, or how he felt America was like in 1972, yeah? This would be the Nixon years. This would be the years right at the end of the Vietnam War, where at the end of all of the sort of hippie era, all of that stuff, the massive change in America that then got focused into this, what at the time was a very reactionary Republican administration. It turns out that that was the last of the Republicans who were kind of a bulwark against Barry Goldwater, who then really showed up in spirit in Ronald Reagan and through, you know. And so, but because he's writing that kind of crazy satire, sci-fi goofiness, this was meant to be like the zaniest extrapolation possible. He was taking this to the farthest extreme he could go. But now it's 53 years later, and this thing rings true. Now, of course, obviously, I'm not saying that it was exactly, of course it's not exactly accurate. The United States of America is still the United States of America, even though we're going through this stuff. Right, that we're going through right now. But, I mean, let's be honest. Like I said on my Goodreads review, anyone reading this book in at least the first, let's say, quarter, I don't know how far this is going to go, of 2025 is going to be freaked out by this. Okay, it's too much in the direction of where we've gotten in the 53 years since 1972, for I think any reasonable person to be comfortable with. Yeah. I mean, this book amused me. I laughed at certain points, right? It was funny. It was clever. It was a smart guy with smart things to say, but you don't have to be serious to be profound. And Ron Goulart proves that in Hawkshaw. But man, I don't know, it confused me too, it freaked me out. And I guess maybe that's what good books are really supposed to do. Yeah? So, all that having been said, let's go back to the giant stacks of books, pick a new one. Whew. This is going to be a difficult act to follow. That's been Hawkshaw by Ron Goulart. I've been Phil. Ban the fascists, not the books. Okay, right? Time to pick another book at random. I need to figure out how, though, I can move things around so that you can see me roll these dice, or do you just believe me? Because remember, I have my trusty 10-sided die that will determine which of the 10 stacks, there's 6 on the outside, 4 behind there, which stack I'm going to draw from. I'm going to roll it again, and I always sort of forget what my method is, so I make it up different every time. Maybe it's the same as the last video. I don't know, it doesn't matter. If it's 1 through 5, I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. If it's 6 through 10, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. And then roll this 20-sided die and count, right? 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 whatever this comes up. Yeah? So are you trusting me, or do we want to move the camera? Let's see if we can move the camera. Okay, first of all, for the shelf. Oh, it's in the shadow. Can we see what it is? I can't really see from the angle what it is. Oh, it's number 1. That's going to require me to really dig. We're going to do that. Okay, so we're rolling again. Remember, 1 through 5, top down. That's a 2. That's going to be easier for me to access. So stack number 1, working or counting from the top down, we are looking for book number... What? I can't see it. I can't see it. Number 10. So book number 10 in stack number 1, starting at the top and counting down. Let's see what we get. Once again, this video brought to you by Grieger. First of all, to get to stack number 1 back there, we're going to have to take some books back off here. Now, these are in no particular order. Oh, you remember this one from a book haul video. So I'm just taking these out, and if they go back in a different order, it doesn't matter, because the idea is that this is random, right? I'm not making a plan here, except that I'm planning to read another book from my giant shelves of random paperbacks. All right, and we said for working from the top down, we're looking for book number 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8's a nice chunky one. 9 and 10. Ooh, speaking of chunky ones. Oh, am I worried about this? Uh-oh. Oh, is this going to count as a long read? I don't know, but it's definitely bigger than that Ron Goulart book. It's not easy to get that out of there. All right, and then these don't always stack because, of course, they're always slightly different trim sizes, so I'm going to have to fix that. But what was the book that we got? Ooh, okay, there was a story about this when this came in. 2 Planets by Kurt Leschwitz. This was like a German book that was originally published by the Southern Illinois University Press. Yeah, I'm remembering this one. Old stuff. Old book. And it says copyright 1971 from the... Oh, yeah. So this was from 1897. 2 Planets by Kurt Leschwitz. I'm a little bit scared of this. This is a very big... This is a long, dense book. It's 383 pages. I'm going to read this. Oh, for goodness sake. Come here. You can't even see what I'm doing. What's this? The Kent cigarette ad. Don't smoke, kids. Don't smoke. It's poisonous. But let's go. Next book, chosen at random, 2 Planets by Kurt Leschwitz. Yeah. Okay. Don't forget to go get that copy of Hawkshaw from somewhere. Thanks, everybody.